Right. Sure. But never. You know everything, don't you? You know everything. Look, Neil, I get it. Your ass is. Check 1 2 3. Check 1 2 3.
People pouring in here. RC, Patrick, appreciate y'all joining the party. We'll get underway in just a few moments here. Let me get Mr. Wolmer and Prince. Make sure they're in here to get us started on time. I know the NBA finals start at 8 o'clock Eastern, so I don't want to keep anybody away from that for too long. So, all right. Let's see. All right. Who else we got pouring in here? No Punts. Welcome to the cast. Appreciate you coming by on this Sunday afternoon. We've been away for a minute. We were off for Memorial Day weekend and took us a well-deserved bye week, so it feels good to be back in the saddle here for episode 23 of Light 'em Up, believe it or not. 23 of these in the books after tonight's episode. All right, let me drop this link for the cast on the Discord. Let's see here. All right. Easy Money Nelly. Welcome to the Terradome. All right, we got Wilmer in here. One half of our first debate. We just need to get Prince in here. Wilmer, I'll go ahead and invite you up to the speaker seat that you get settled in. This is Silly 2021. Welcome to the cast. The return of the century is here. All right, Wilmer. My friend.
Thank you. It's great to be back, and I'm glad it's a hockey debate.
We reached out to you. You didn't even ask what the topic was. You were just like, yes, I want to debate.
Hockey's just that kind of thing.
Right. I see. Yeah, I'm always happy to get more hockey debates in here. So thank you for obliging. As we're at the top of the hour here, is Mr. Prince blessed us with his presence yet? Not quite. Lily Shue, our season 1 champion, is in attendance. Welcome, Lily. Currently, right now, in our standings, Easy Money Nelly would be our season 2 champ. We have 2 more shows to go after this one. So see if anyone can give him his first L of the season. I know Nelly wants to smoke with anybody. We got Josh, number 1 fan. Josh, is that like your mom or what's up? It's your father. Oh, that's awesome. Hey, Josh's dad. Thanks for tuning in here as Prince will join us here at the top of the hour to get us underway here. Yeah. And there he is, Mr. Prince. Welcome aboard.
Give me experience, Wilmer. Turn up the music, David.
Okay, so here we are, episode 23 of Light of Month, and we have an awesome slate lined up for you guys this evening.
Dominic Hasek is one of the greatest goalies of all time. He absolutely is the greatest. There is not something this guy has not done. A 2-time Cup winner, 6-time All-Star, 3 times won the Jennings, which is a teammate award because you have to have 2 really good goalies, but he won that 3 times, a 6-time Vezina, which is kind of impressive considering the fact that he was a full-time starter in only 13 years of his 16-year NHL career. A 2-time Hart winner, which is the MVP award. We all know how hard it is for goalies to win the Hart. He is the only goalie to ever win that award twice. He also did win the Pearson Trophy, which also today is now known as the Ted Lindsay Award, which is the most outstanding player. But Dominic Hasek is the guy who you need to win. He will carry you to that victory. You look at the Buffalo Sabres years, those were some of the roughest years of his career because just how bad the team was. Only twice did the team ever finish 4th or higher than 4th place in their division. Every other time they finished 4th or lower, but you look at his stats, he had winning records in all those seasons because that's just how good he was. His goals against average is just mind-boggling considering the fact that he led the league twice in that stat. And those were when he won the back-to-back Hart Trophy winners. He also did play with Detroit and Ottawa, where he did win a cup twice in Detroit. But this was the guy who consistently put up fantastic numbers. He did retire in his career for a couple seasons to spend time with family. He came back. He still put up the numbers that he did when he was in his prime. And he was well into his 40s by then. That is it.
All right. And thank you, Wilmer, for that opening argument. Prince, my friend, you can come off of mute, and your 2 minutes starts now.
All right. Okay. So when you think of goalies, you think of Patrick Waugh. He revolutionized the position by making the butterfly style the most dominant style in the NHL. Literally every single goaltender in the league, for the most part, is playing that pro style, aka butterfly style net these days. He's influenced the game like no one else. Patrick Waugh is the only player in the NHL to win the Conn Smythe Trophy Award for the most valuable player in the Stanley Cup playoffs 3 times in 3 different eras, in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. Only player to ever do that. He has 23 career shutouts in the playoffs, only to be beaten by Martin Brodeur, who played longer than him. He's got 4 Stanley Cups, one which he won by himself, a lot of critics would say, where he stood on his head versus the Rangers, Washington, and Wilmer's Bruins. He has a 1.93 goals against average with 504 saves in that season. Also, in '93, they won again with the Canadiens, where he spearheaded the Canadiens, where he shut down Wayne Gretzky to beat the LA Kings on the path to win the Stanley Cup. He's a legend at that position. As a rookie, he was coming way out of his crease, as people remember him, more than any modern-day goalie probably today, snatching glove saves with that cocky attitude. He's considered the best playoff performer for a goalie by his peers and most experts, and that's what counts more than anything, coming up big when it matters most. I concede my time.
All right. And with 30 seconds to spare, Prince, short and sweet. Gentlemen, thank you for those opening arguments. You both may come off of mute now as we get ready for our 10 minutes of crossfire. Gentlemen, light them up.
All right. I'm just going to say this right now. Revolutionizing a position does not make you the greatest goalie of all time. Let's also put out the facts here. The Patrick Waugh, yes, he did win the Conn Smythe 3 times. But when you look at all the awards he's won, he hasn't won that many awards for a 19-year career. He only won the best goaltender 3 times. He was part of the Jennings, which is a teammate award 5 times. He did win the Conn Smythe 3 times. But that's it. Never once was he voted most outstanding player, most valuable player. And that was just because he was on some really good teams that were really good and won Cup finals. You look at the Colorado years, those teams were loaded beyond belief. The numbers that Waugh put up in those years don't necessarily show why he's the greatest goalie of all time. The year in Montreal, yeah, he had some really good years, including the 1988-89 season where he only lost 5 times in 48 games, winning 33. But he did have some years where he really wasn't that good. He had a year. You look at the year that they won the Cup Finals in 92-93, his goals against average was well over 3. It wasn't like he was standing on his head throughout the season. It was looking at guys like Vincent Damphousse, who had 97 points that year. Kurt Muller had 94. Brian Bellows, who had 88. Steven LeBeau, who had 80. So the team was loaded. He didn't necessarily stand on his head. He was good in the Cup Finals. But you look at the way he played, he was not the best goalie of all time. You look at Dominic Hasek, who was sometimes very well good team out of play. He just found a way to make it work.
I mean, you say all that, but Patrick Waugh, I mean, he's won 5 Jennings, more than your guy Hasek. He's won the Vezina 3 times. Yes, certainly Hasek's won more. He's 11 All-Star appearances, 4 first All-Star teams.
Is as old as me.
He's got the rookie team. He was 20 years old when he took the team that was not supposed to even be in the playoffs. And they're not supposed to win the championship whatsoever, and they won it because his performance. And if you look at the way, the pads were, they're noticeably different when when Hashik came into the league in the 90s, there were bigger pads, bigger equipment. People don't talk about that. You know, Dominic Hashik also, he was drafted in the 83, but he only entered the league in the 1990s. So he had plenty of time to develop in another league overseas in the Czech Republic. And I'm sure he watched Patrick Waugh play at that time, wondering how good of a player he was. He also came in during a time in the early 90s, if you recall, that it was considered the dead puck era, where a lot of teams implemented a trap system where they played this defensive system, you know, which lowered the scoring significantly. You know, goalies didn't have to play as hard as you know, players in the late 80s, where Patrick Waugh first started his career, or in the 2000s, of course, when scoring, of course, increased once again. So that dead puck era, which is highly noted by NHL critics, NHL experts, the scoring dropped. You know, and that trap system, if you remember, Martin Brodeur played in it with the New Jersey Devils. It reduced scoring quite a bit.
All right, gentlemen.
It eased up the goaltending efforts for goalies a lot more. So, not to say that he didn't play well, but I mean, it certainly made it a lot easier when he first got into the league. And his goals against average when he first got in certainly reflected that. Not to say that he didn't have a good one after that as well, but it certainly made a huge difference.
Okay, I need to go back to a statement you made about goalie pads. The goalie pads did not get bigger in the 90s. It was actually after the year after the lockout when they got bigger. So that's a very false statement.
I don't think it's a false. No, I got what you're saying. I don't think it's a false statement, because if you look at it,
You said they got bigger. You said they got bigger. They didn't get bigger.
You look at it on TV.
Goalie pads in the same style as Patrick Waugh. You cannot come out and say they got bigger when they did.
Well, I mean, I look at highlights and I see them to be smaller. Not a lot smaller, but they're smaller. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Formally speaking, they formally changed them after the lockout. Agree with you on that. But I mean, if you want to call it that statement, it's up to you. But I see it on highlights. A lot of fans have called it out as well. So I mean, the pads were noticeably smaller, not by much, but still making a huge difference. As you've seen recently, the pads have become smaller. The equipment's become smaller. Because of the huge outward because of fans, with players like J.S. Jaguar, and that's increased the scoring. So, I mean, I think that makes a huge difference.
5 minutes remaining, gentlemen. 5 minutes remaining.
All right, but there's something else I want to talk about. I would love to discuss Patrick Waugh's record versus Dominic Hasek. Believe it or not, Hasek dominated Patrick Waugh. Throughout his tenure as a starter in the 14 years, realistically, they played Roy. He was 18-8-3 versus Roy. 8 times, Hasek shut up the other team. He out-battled Roy consistently, putting up much better numbers in games he played. He only ever gave up 4 goals or more twice in those games against Roy. You want to know how many times Roy gave up 4 or more goals against Hasek's team? Talk about 5 times. It's a considerable difference because you're not giving your team a chance to win. Then you got Hasek, who was on really bad Buffalo Sabres teams. I would love to get some more stats. Buffalo, when he was the starter, was 330, 278, and 100. The 100 stands for ties or overtime losses. Hasek was 234, 170, and 70. So you're talking about a team that, without him, had a bigger difference in losing record by almost 40 games than Hasek, who, if you count the overtime losses and the ties with the losses, was just 6 games under 500. This was a team that consistently finished 4th or lower in their division. Hasek had a 926 save percentage in a 225 goals against average. This is on a really bad team. I want to bring up his 1999 run to the Cup Finals where they got beat by one of the most controversial goals in NHL history. That team was straight trash. The best player was Miroslav Shaton. That's not saying much. They got Michael Pekka. He's not that good. Their number 1 defenseman was Alexei Sitnov. I don't even know how to say his name. Sitnik? I have no idea. He can take a team and put them on his back to bring them further than they can ever imagine. You can't say the same about Patrick Waugh. He had teams around him that helped get him to the points he did. He was good in the playoffs because that's where the teams were able to get him in the playoffs. They had those high seeds because during the regular season, the teams were very good that put out in front of them. Defense, offense, were able to go and score goals. Hasek never had that this time in Buffalo. When he got to Detroit, yes, times were much easier. He had the fabulous Russian line. He had some fantastic defensemen, including Nicholas Lidstrom, who probably revolutionized the defensive game that we saw in the early 2000s and the early 2010s. But you look at the Buffalo years, those is what establishes Dominik Hasek as a goalie. The guy who would put up some of the lowest numbers you'll see, shut teams out, win those Vezina trophies as the least best goaltender, because that's really what he did. He was so valuable to that team that he made that team better.
All right, can I go? All right, so I mean, yeah, he was a good player. Michael Pekka was not a bad player. He was selected on several Canadian teams and on the championship teams, world championship teams. So he was not a bad player. But I mean, you know, in December 2011, the NHL came out with a list of the top 5 all-time goaltenders, and Patrick Roy selected as number 1. Did not come with a list ever since then. And by 2011, I think both their careers were done for the most part. Yeah, they were done actually. So I mean, the NHL considered him to be the top goalie as well. I mean, Dominik Hasek also was mentored, arguably one of the originator of the hybrid style goaltenders, one of the best goaltenders, played for the Red Army, Vladislav Tretiak. So I mean, yeah, that kind of helps him as well. So I mean, Patrick Roy, yes, he got trained by Allaire, but he was on his own for the most part. You see, John Beliveau stated Patrick Roy's performance in '86 to be one of the greatest he's ever seen. He's still number 2 in the top 10 winners NHL goalies, right? Only because Brodeur played 4 more seasons than him. And yeah, certainly, I mean, Dominik Hasek is a great player, but
30 seconds.
Patrick Roy is, considered to be a champion. 4 championships. Yeah, you talk about those Colorado Avalanche teams, but that was a missing piece. He was a missing piece. He brought that confidence all up. If it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have won any of those championships.
Well, of course, you say that he was the missing piece, but that was just because Jocelyn Thibault was their goalie. That's not saying much. He was very good in Colorado, but the guy he was replacing realistically would have been a backup on most teams. You can't say that he was the missing piece, and that was just what made them much better.
And that is time, gentlemen. That is time. Excellent crossfire segment. One, I'm going to ask you to go on mute. Prince, your 2 minutes closing statement starts now.
Okay. Patrick Roy was a missing piece for the Colorado Avalanche for them to beat the best team in the NHL at the time, the Red Wings, who were loaded. The Colorado Avalanche were an expansion team at the time, and once they got St. Patrick, as they call him, they were able to compete with the rest of the league. They were a dominant team with Patrick Roy. As Tom Rennie has definitively stated as an ex-NHL coach, respected voice in hockey and part of the Team Canada Olympic brass, how can you not possibly for a second imagine they were nothing but confident with the teams he played on? Whether it was Montreal or Colorado, they were confident because Patrick Roy was in goal. In 2003, he was all-time leader with the regular season, as I mentioned, and postseason wins by goaltender, only be beaten by Martin Brodeur because he played 4 more years than him. In an NHL video, they stated he was more than a consummate winner. He was a trendsetter who inspired a generation of goaltenders who imitated a style he perfected, the butterfly style. Darren Pang, an ex-NHL goalie, one of the most respected goalie experts, who's been doing national broadcasting for years, has said he's perfected the position at goaltending. He's perfected the position at goaltending. Martin Brodeur, arguably one of the best 3-time Stanley Cup champ, most wins as a goaltender, was noted saying, because of Patrick Roy, goalies were important. It's huge coming from him. He was so consistent, and that was something when I played in the NHL early on, I wanted to mimic and be as consistent as him. I think I'm going to have a good career if I do that. That's one of the things I took from Patrick. To repeat in my intro, when you think about goalies, one of the first things that comes up is Patrick Roy, not Dominik Hasek. His influence on the game has been monumental with all the French-Canadian goalies that followed him. Heck, even your guy Tuukka Rask, who's not a French-Canadian, but he plays butterfly as well. He's popularized that style. He's one of the fiercest competitors you'll ever meet in that position. You telling me Hasek hasn't watched Patrick Roy while he was in the Czech Republic? He definitely was watching him when he was in Czech Republic. One of the most influential, one of the most best and competitive players you'll ever see in that position, and definitely a legend at that position. I concede my time.
All right. Thank you, Prince, for that closing statement. Wilmer, your 2 minutes starts now.
All right. Well, you heard what I had to say, and the fact is, Dominik Hasek despite the fact you want to hear his name as top goalie of all time in many lists, I don't think you can really rely on a professional sport to give a list out. What Dominik Hasek did not only changed the way goaltenders play, because when many goaltenders were out of it, they wouldn't go back and do it. He made everything work. He would carry teams. He would find a way to get the job done. He would help be the guy that will give teams multiple chances to win a game. Patrick Roy was fantastic. He was a really good butterfly goalie. But you see the way he plays in the regular season is different from the postseason. His goals against average during the regular season, throughout his combined years, was 254. He head down to the postseason. It was a much, much lower at 225. He was better than the postseason because he was a much better postseason goalie than was a regular season goalie. Dominik Hasek was consistent as consistent can get. It was a 220 regular season goals against average. And it was right around there in the postseason. You look at some of the worst postseason years he had, was way back in Chicago when he wasn't even given a chance. Then he took the reins and never once conceded it. If he was given the chance that Roy was given, you would be looking at the greatest goaltender of all time, because he would have had goals against averages lower than 2, a guy who would consistently get more and more shutouts. And don't forget, Dominik Hasek played many less years than Roy did. And it still recorded much more shutouts.
15 seconds.
Dominik Hasek is nicknamed the Dominator. And let's also not forget Patrick Roy. If you're the best goalie of all time, you don't quit. And let's not forget the fact that he quit on his team back in '95.
Oh,
At the buzzer.
Oh, shit.
At the buzzer. All right.
Well, this was good, man. This was good.
So with that said, thank you, gentlemen, for that rousing opening debate. The voting link is now live. Let's see what the fans have to say about this one. We have 13 people tuned in. And with 5 votes in right now, we have Warmer ahead 83 to 16. 83% to 16%. Like the 85.7. Oh, nope, 75-25 with 8 votes. And that's a majority for Warmer. He's going to win with 75% of the vote. Congrats on your W, Warmer.
Nice job, man. Yo, that was freaking good, man. That was heat right there. That was heat.
Thank you.
Appreciate the NHL debate, gentlemen. I'm going to go ahead and move you off from the speaker role, but thanks again. Appreciate this. This was awesome. Right.
Well killed it, man.
We did.
All right. Well, we came out of the gates blazing here with some NHL debates. I'm excited. I'm about that. Now let's go ahead and go to the wrestling match. We're going to debate the best moment from the WWE's Attitude Era. For wrestling fans, get ready for what should be a good one here between C-Mac and Cap No Cap, as I invite them on here. And Cap No Cap will be pulling double duty today, actually. He'll be in our final debate on who's going to win the NBA Finals. So stay tuned for that. And as these two get settled in here, just a quick programming note. Since our good friend Stone Sports is a Celtics fan, he won't be hosting Cool 'em Down afterwards. So we'll try to get out here right at 8 o'clock so you all can go and enjoy Game 2 of the NBA Finals. As I welcome in C-Mac and Cap No Cap for our second debate of the evening. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Pretty good, man. How about yourself?
Pretty awesome. I can't complain. Cannot complain. Ready to debate some wrestling?
No doubt
about it.
All right. Okay, so C-Mac, since you have, well, actually, let me set the stage here. So, again, we're going to be debating in our second debate what is the best moment of the Attitude Era of the WWE, featuring C-Mac, who is 1-1 in season 2 and all time. And he will be arguing for when Mankind won his first WWF championship against Cap No Cap, who is 1-3-1 here in season 2, 2-3-1 all time. And he's going to be arguing for the Hell in the Cell 98 match where Undertaker threw Mankind off the cell. So debate again, C-Mac, you have the better season 2 record, so you get to decide, sir, if you want to kick off or defer. What do you choose?
I will choose to defer, David.
All right. Well, you, sir, can go on mute. Cap, you know how this goes. You get 2 minutes of an opening statement, and your time starts now.
All right. The 28th of June, the year of our Lord, 1998. At this moment in time, the man you know as Capital Cap was only 2 days old. The Attitude Era had begun to take stride at this time. Goldberg was ruling in WCW as the world champion. Nitro had been the better show for over a year now. But at this moment, the World Wrestling Federation had the world talking. The moment happened at the King of the Ring. This year, it was the 5th installment of this event. In the second to last match, Mankind took on The Undertaker in a grudge match for the ages. The hatred these two had for each other had hit an all-time high. After boiling room brawls, buried alive matches, and matches on some of the Federation's biggest stages. This time, it had to end in Hell in a Cell. These two warriors went to battle in a 17-minute scuffle. Stone Cold Steve Austin was the main event of that night and wasn't able to follow up this match. To this day, people still wonder how Mankind had the testicular fortitude to get up after being thrown 16 feet to the ground from the top of the cell to continue the match against the Demon of Death Valley. The crowd was in pure chaos after he climbed back up the cage, but then a few moments later, Mankind was laying in the middle of the ring after a vicious chokeslam through the roof of the cage. Jim Ross screams into the top of his lungs to stop the damn match, rings in everybody's mind.
45 seconds.
The most perfect sequence that happened by accident. It lives in everyone's mind that was in that arena that night, from the stage crew to the ringside to the boys in the back. Everyone knew that night Mankind was a different level of crazy, and The Undertaker was the baddest man now living. Easily the best moment in the Attitude Era.
Thank you for that, Cap. And look, you went in and went on mute for me. Appreciate that. I love it when you guys know how the show flows. All right, C-Mac, you know how this goes, my man. Your 2 minutes opening statement starts now.
All right, yes, sir. So my best moment for the WWF Attitude Era is also one that involves Mankind, but it's not Hell in a Cell. It is when he won his first WWF Championship on an episode of Raw, January 4th, 1999. And the build-up to this match was just insane. He was feuding with The Rock, and everyone knows The Rock, right? And he had a faction called the Corporation. It was the McMahon family, a big boss man, Ken Shamrock. And the whole build to this match was Mankind kept getting screwed over by this corporation. He got screwed over in Survivor Series 1998, a couple months prior, when The Rock actually joined the corporation. And then again at In Your House 1998, he got screwed out of another match with The Rock. So the time came on an episode of Raw, January 4th, 1999. Towards the end of that match, the corporation was getting in again, trying to screw Mankind again, and the fans were like, oh no, here we go again. But then here comes the glass shattering, here comes Stone Cold Steve Austin, and that pop that the fans gave that night was unlike any other. It was the loudest I've ever heard. And then Stone Cold comes in, he hits The Rock with a chair, The Rock goes down, he puts Mankind on top of Rock, 1, 2, 3, and I think an even louder pop than the one that Stone Cold got ensues when Mankind wins that title and he gets hoisted up by all the good babyface wrestlers on that night. And on top of that too, not only was the end of that match just good for the pop, but it was also the turning point for that company, WWE as a whole, and it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest reason why that company still exists today. And I'll talk about it a little more in the crossfire, but for now, I can see the rest of my time.
All right, gentlemen. You guys have done an excellent job kind of setting the stage here, what the Attitude Era was all about. So this should be a great crossfire segment. Cap, no cap, you can come off with mute. And gentlemen, your 10 minutes of crossfire starts now. Light them up.
Yo, C-Mac was good, my guy. All right. So I personally feel like one of the main reasons why your moment happens is because the moment here took place. If Undertaker and Mankind don't go to bat in Hell in a Cell, Vince McMahon may never even be convinced that Mankind is world championship worthy. And that's one of the main reasons why I feel like this is the best moment of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really say I disagree with that too much. I mean, Mankind did garner the respect of the fans that night, but I think that is part of the reason why it made my moment that much more special is because he had garnered that respect from the fans from that night and for the next 6 months moving forward until he won the title. And the pop that he got that night was just out of this world, and no pop from the fans has ever even come close to that ever since, and it's been over 20 years.
And to add to that, because yes, this is one of the greatest moments in Raw history, no doubt about it. But it may not be as big of a moment if you don't have DX out there holding Mankind down, because of course the corporation was out there, and then you have the surprise appearance from Stone Cold, which has the crowd going bonkers. So it's a lot of elements to this moment that doesn't even include Mankind to be great. When we're talking about Hell in a Cell, we're thinking about Undertaker throwing him off the top. We're thinking about Mankind still being able to get up and continue the fight despite dislocating his shoulder, despite having a tooth larger than his nose. He still was able to give the Undertaker one of the greatest fights that we've ever seen. And it's a car crash, but it's an excellent one. It's a 5-star car crash, and I don't think it will ever be able to be recreated. The Mankind World Title moment to me could be recreated, and it's been done with different examples like Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston. You will never be able to recreate this moment that you had in Hell in a Cell.
I mean, I don't know if I'd go that far as to say you can never recreate it, because ever since that match, there have been plenty of Hell in a Cell matches where someone gets thrown out, maybe not the top of the cell completely, but like a good 3/4 of the way up the cell, and they go through the announce table. So I mean, that spot, it has had similar spots happen in the past. But I kind of want to talk about now the ratings war that went on between WWE, back then it was known as WWF for the people that don't know, versus WCW. And that war had been going on for a few years up to this point. WCW was kind of running away with it, but then WWF kind of started catching up in 1998 a little bit, going into 1999. And the funny thing is, that match, that Rock Mankind match that I'm talking about, it wasn't even live. It was taped. And one of WCW's announcers, Tony Schiavone, who actually now works for a new company called AEW, he was told to say, like, oh, Mankind's going to win the title tonight. And then he jokingly said, like, that's going to put the butts in the seats. But little did WCW know, that moment actually backfired on them, because it got more fans to tune into that moment. And that was the turning point, I think, for WWF to essentially win that war. And that is the biggest reason why that company still exists today. And you can look back in the archives and rewatch the Undertaker Mankind Hell in a Cell match over and over again. Because if that moment doesn't happen and WCW wins the war, no one's going to remember that match, that Undertaker Mankind match. They're going to be looking through old WCW matches, because that's going to be the company that still exists today.
But if that's the case, then if Eric Bischoff doesn't do that ludicrous move, then does Mankind's moment even get the same shine? And I feel like it doesn't, because at the time, Nitro was red hot. So WWE really was trying to do anything to get people to turn over to the channel. And despite Eric Bischoff being pretty much like, it feels like he was being more of a double agent by letting WWE get half of their audience by telling them what the result was going to be. I feel like there's nothing that would have been able to outshine this moment at Hell in a Cell. And that's why it's one of the moments that we automatically think of when we're talking about the Attitude Era. One thing about this matchup compared to your matchup, this match is not the main event. It's not for the world title, but it's the match that we all think about when we talk about that event. And it's because of the fact that it was too big for a world title. These guys have been fighting for 2 years on and off, and this is the only way that you can end this rivalry, and they ended it in the best way possible.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it is a great moment, but I think the one flaw with this going from being great to being the best, why that doesn't eclipse that for me, is because it was too much of like a shock factor for me. It wasn't so much like a huge pop from the fans. Like when that moment happened, there were gasps along the stage. There was like legitimate concern for Mankind's health. Like, and it wasn't just like, because wrestling is like, oh, fake injuries, blah blah blah. But no, these were like real injuries. You were talking about like a dislocated shoulder, broken ribs. God knows what else happened to Mankind that night. But there was legitimate concern for his health, and that's why I think that it can't be the best, because who knows? Like,
so let me cut in here for a second, right? So for those of you that may not be as familiar with wrestling, right? Like, this is probably one of the key moments in all of professional wrestling, regardless of the promotion. And it sounds like what we have are two stances where we're talking about whether a moment was impactful enough to kind of salvage the premier, one of the top two premier wrestling promotions at the time, with C-Mac's pick versus Cap. When you're thinking that and a potential moment that escalated beyond the era and is still remembered by fans even to this day. So for me right now, I'm on the fence, because it's like, well, what's more pivotal? The one that kind of kept WWE around, or the one that still kind of lives rent free in my head? So y'all go ahead.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's one that lives rent free in your head, and that's the Hell in a Cell moment. But like C-Mac says, this moment when Mankind wins the title, not only is it's kind of like a late game shuffle. It's like the coach called an audible, because this was not in the plans at all. The Rock was supposed to hold on to that title all the way through to WrestleMania. Mankind changed those plans, but that doesn't happen if the crowd don't find the appreciation for Mankind that eventually turns him babyface at Hell in a Cell. Once Hell in a Cell happens, they change the entire storyline around to focus around The Rock and Mankind, and making Mankind the sympathetic babyface. And that doesn't happen if he doesn't go up against The Undertaker, because The Undertaker was the one that was the babyface at that time. And in that moment, it was almost like they did a double switch. Undertaker went on the bad guy side, and Mankind went on the babyface side. It didn't happen right away, but it was a slow burn that you've seen over time, and that only happens a select few times in wrestling. And I feel like that was one of the times it doesn't get called on as much, like per se Bret Hart versus Stone Cold, but I feel like it still has the same type of staying power at that moment in time.
Yeah, and then like I was saying, like, I think the reason that match does get remembered so much is because the company still exists today, and we can watch it in the archives over and over and over again. But my stance is that if WCW wins the war, then that match, that Undertaker match, kind of gets thrown to the side.
I personally think if WCW was to end up taking over, WCW would have been too busy trying to recreate that moment, because it was just so big of a moment that they want to recreate it for themselves, and it would have never been able to happen. And then it even probably would have made the moment between Undertaker and Mankind that much bigger, because you can't recreate that. It's impossible.
I mean, I could say the same thing about my moment. If WCW had won, they could have picked any one of their superstars back in the day. They could have done a slow turn, and they could have had some big moment where they won the titles. But
it's 30 seconds.
It's a possibility that might have happened with Diamond Dallas Page.
Yeah, for sure it could have. But when I think best moment, part of it, like I said, is like the pop. Like, I've never seen or heard a pop that loud from the fans ever. And I just think, and it was like a double pop when Stone Cold comes out first, and then another pop after that when Mankind wins the title. It was kind of like a double pop that made it explosive.
And that is time, gentlemen. I have to stop you there on the crossfire. Cap, sir, if you could be so kind to go on mute. And C-Mac, your 2 minutes closing argument starts now.
All right, awesome. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of said most everything that I wanted to say. I mean, there's no denying that both moments are great. That Undertaker Mankind match was great. But the problem is, I think there was too much legitimate concern for Mankind's health to eclipse that moment from being the best. It's still a great moment, not gonna lie. It's definitely up there. But when you think of The Rock and Mankind, and you think about that ratings war between WWF and WCW, that match and that moment specifically was the turning point for that company to take over the ratings war and eventually win it. Not that much longer after. And that's the reason why this company still exists today. And that is part of the reason why you can look through the archives. That's why we have the WWE Network, or at least, we have it in foreign countries now. They got rid of it in the US. They bought a deal with Peacock. But nonetheless, that's the reason why you can go back and watch that match on, Peacock or WWE Network or whatever. And on top of that,
One minute
the
remaining.
pop from the fans, the cheering that happened, it was not, unlike anything I've ever seen, and unlike anything I've ever heard. And with that, I will concede the rest of my time.
Thank you, C-Mac. Cap, no cap. Your 2 minutes closing statement starts now.
All right. So, June 28th, 1998, when The Undertaker walked into this match, he had a broken foot and tons of other lingering injuries. Mankind suffered a dislocated shoulder and a tooth lodged through his nose and some internal bleeding. But they not only went on to have a classic car crash match, but probably the greatest WWE spectacle of all time. This is easily the greatest moment in Attitude Era history. This is the first thing that comes to mind outside of Stone Cold and The Rock, and both of them were on that card and still were overshadowed by this moment. Any other moment would go to either one of them, but this night the world was only talking about Taker throwing Foley off of the cell. They were only talking about Foley getting back up and climbing back up and fighting Taker. They were talking about the thumbtacks, the choke slams, the tombstones. They were talking about Hell in the Cell in King of the Ring, 98, easily the greatest moment of all time. And I concede my time.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you both for that debate. I know it's always hard kind of discussing these niche kind of sports topics, but you guys handled it very well. Thank you for that. I'm going to drop the voting link in here and open up the poll and start my timer for 2 minutes of voting.
And great debate, Cap. And the most anticipated debate in light of history.
I appreciate it. This was really fun. And for those that's trying to figure out a name, Testicular Fortitude comes to mind.
Testicular Fortitude. All right, let's take a look here at the votes. With 5 votes in, 80% of the vote is going to Cap, no cap. There is, actually, that might be a majority because we have 8 listeners in here, 80-20 in favor of Cap, no cap. So you're going to take this one. Cap? Majority.
All right, thank you.
All right.
C-Mac, great debate.
Congrats, man.
Yep, thanks everyone. Thank you both for that debate. We'll remove you, C-Mac. Cap, you stay right there, my friend.
Good luck in your next debate, man.
As Cap will be pulling double duty tonight as we get ready for our third and final debate on who will win the NBA Finals. And I'll get RC Milton in here, who will challenge that. Who will be challenging Cap, no cap. So let's take a look here. So Cap, if you're pulling double duty and you just secured a W, you now have a record. Let's see here. Yes, so RC Milton is 1-1. Cap, you're now 2-3-1 in season 2. If I do my math correctly, RC still has the better season 2 record by win percentage. So he will be decide how we kick off here. But nonetheless, let me set the stage here for our third and final debate of the evening. And it's pretty straightforward. Who will win the NBA Finals? So we're going to have RC Milton here, who is 1-1, 1-1 here in season 2 and all time, who's siding with the Golden State Warriors. And he's going to go against Cap No Cap, who is now 2-3-1 here in season 2 and now 3-3-1 all time, who will be siding with the Boston Celtics. So, gentlemen, you are in here, right? I think I got both of you settled in here.
Cap, what's going on, man? Things are good?
All right.
Everything is good. RC, how's everything?
Nah, not too bad. David, hope you're doing well as well. Really looking forward to this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks.
Should be a lot of fun.
For coming on, and Cap, thanks for pulling double duty. RC, as I mentioned, my friend, you have the better win percentage here in season 2. So you get to decide whether you want to start off or defer. What do you choose?
I will defer, please.
Okay. So Cap, you will start us off with your 2-minute opening statement. RC, you can go on mute. Cap, the floor is yours.
All right, so despite already seeing game one, where Tatum had a terrible outing, the Boston Celtics were able to secure the first victory in a 120-108 thrashing against the Golden State Warriors. I believe the Celtics will become NBA champions, and it has a lot to do with the Celtics' top-tier defense. They were able to contain Steph Curry to 13 points in the second half, despite him dropping 21 in the first half, and kept the rest of the PTSD lineup to a combined 10 of 33. The Celtics have shown their hunger to conquer the NBA for the first time in 14 years, being able to defeat the Nets in a sweep and defeating both of the last two Eastern Conference champions in grueling 7 games, containing both Giannis and Jimmy Butler despite Herculean efforts. Not only had they defeated more credible competition than the Warriors, but they had to prove themselves on multiple occasions. With an 8-2 road record in these playoffs, the Celtics are not afraid of anybody. They have been doubted in every series so far and have proven their haters wrong time after time, round after round. And they are in the NBA Finals for the 22nd time, and they sit here only being defeated by 2 franchises, the Lakers and the Hawks. You know the Celtics and the Warriors did play in the finals once in '64 when Will met Bill for the first and only time in the finals, and it ended with an easy Celtics victory. Does history repeat itself? And I can see the rest of my time.
Thank you, Cap. You can go on mute. RC, you're already ready. So your 2 minutes opening statement starts now.
They're back. After a 2-year hiatus, the Golden State Warriors have reached the NBA Finals for the 6th time in 8 years, looking for yet another chip, this time against the Boston Celtics. The Dubs, equipped with the ultimate big three in Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and with Stephen Curry, the best three-point shooter in NBA history, this trio will look to cement their legacy as one of the most celebrated partnerships the association has ever seen. Since the Dubs' last appearance into the NBA Finals, they, like the rest of the world, as well as the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, have been flipped upside down, losing the play-in tournament in the 21 season, and of course, finishing dead last in the 1920 regular season. Their response, the likes of Kevon Looney, who has been to the final 5 of the 6 times Golden State has appeared during this stretch, along with the emergence of Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, who just started this year's All-Star game in Cleveland. Their opponents, the reported beef their all-star tandem had, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, appears to have been squashed, as they did end the second half of the regular season with a decent clip. As a unit, the number of finals appearances this squad has collectively, the grand total of, wait, I didn't do the math here, carry the 1 divided by pi square root, none. 0. Bagel. Do you know what is less than 0.5427? The number of times the roster of the Boston Celtics have made the NBA Finals. By the way, comparing team playoff stats, who is up in team playoff points per game, team field goal percentage, team 3-point percentage, offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, leads the playoffs in team assists? It is your Golden State Warriors. It is another day in the office for the Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, as he will be collecting another championship ring, as his Golden State Warriors will reign as NBA champions. I concede my time.
You're actually right on time, RC. Great job there. All right, Cap, I see you're ready. You immediately came off of mute. You're ready for the crossfire.
My computer for this one. Said another day at the office. I like that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let me not delay this any further, gentlemen. Your crossfire starts now. Light them up.
All right, so let's start it right here. So it's another day at the office, right? But remember, it's another day at the office without Kevin Durant.
They won a championship without him. Won a championship without him.
In the finals without Kevin Durant, they lost at 6, and I believe it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same story again, because what we've seen in Game 1 is what we're going to see for majority of this series. Stephen Curry playing hero ball with no sign of help anywhere to be found.
Okay, how can you say? How is that the case? Do you remember Splash Brothers? Do you see the what?
Splash Bros
18 and a half points of Jordan Poole, as well as 17 and a half from Andrew Wiggins. He has help. He has options.
That 2 of 7 from Jordan Poole is going to need to be a little bit better if they're going to win anything.
Anything could happen. Now, of course, you could appreciate the fact that Poole and Wiggins have not tasted NBA championship. You'd think they'd be on the Celtics with having 0 NBA finals experience, but you could appreciate the fact. Yeah, you could appreciate the fact that those two are going to elevate their game. Plus, you're going to have an inspired Klay Thompson, who obviously lost out and was everything that happened in Game 6 of the 19 finals. You know that he's going to be hungry to walk out with a split.
All right, so first things first. So we all understand that, yes, Klay Thompson's been hurt for 2 years. That's another reason why I feel like the Warriors are playing with house money right now, because Klay Thompson needs this moment, correct? But at the same time, his body may not be ready for this moment because he has not played competitive basketball for 2 full seasons, and now he's back in the finals. And in that first game, he seemed gassed. Everybody outside of Stephen Curry for 2 quarters, because he played terrible in the second and fourth, by the way, and so did the entire team. Because when Steph was not hitting, that team played absolutely garbage.
Klay Thompson had close to 20 and a half points this season.
Yeah, but he only had 15 in game 1.
Okay.
On terrible shooting.
One game does not mean much.
That 18 and a half that Jordan Poole had all season did not show up not one bit in game 1. I know I'm bringing back up game 1, but I feel like there's no need to talk about the Warriors playoff run because they haven't played any viable competition all playoffs.
Okay.
They play in the first round. I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
The Nuggets with just Jokic, correct?
So so who did who did Boston play? They went 7 with Milwaukee, who does not have anybody other than Giannis, maybe Drew Holiday, and then you have that saga that happened with Brooklyn. So those people in Brooklyn have more issues than Time Magazine. So don't tell me that it was a playoff championship threat with Brooklyn. They have Kevin Durant.
Well, the reason why Boston was the team that played Brooklyn is because Milwaukee ran away from them. So somebody in the NBA thinks that Brooklyn might be somewhat of competition. If Milwaukee and Philly were running away from them all season, Boston took up the challenge and they played top tier defense for 48 minutes. Because it's not like they cakewalked against Brooklyn. They 1-4, but each game was under 10 points.
Okay, so they went 7 against Milwaukee. You go 7 against Milwaukee with no PJ Tucker, with
That's the NBA champions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. With no PJ Tucker, with no Dante DiVincenzo, and with no Robin to the Batman, Chris Middleton to Giannis Antetokounmpo. So who was Milwaukee, and Boston had to go 7 with them?
They had not Batman, but Superman Giannis, who was out there dropping 30.
Okay. Who was with them? Who was with them?
Nobody can stop that man. If it was Golden State versus Giannis by himself.
Okay, nobody could assume that. Respectfully, that never happened. So let's bring it to what it was.
We don't even need to see it to know what happened.
Oh, come on, that argument is so flat. Say it again.
Who's gonna have Draymond Green, Kevon Looney? Which one of them?
Double team him. Who's gonna take the shot then? Kick it. Press. It was the reason why Milwaukee didn't do anything up until last year. They lost against the Raptors twice. During the playoffs, even with DeMar DeRozan leading the Raptors. I don't know who else Milwaukee faced, but during the Giannis era, they were nothing until last season.
And we're at the halfway mark here, gentlemen. Let me just remind you guys that we're just focusing on the NBA Finals right now. We're not talking about what happened beforehand. So let's try to reel it back in here. 4.5 minutes ago. Light them up.
Let me reel it back in for you. So getting to the finals was 5 and then 6 against an injury riddled young Grizzlies team, and then another 5. And now they're against a real team with a better defense, probably a deeper roster. What are they going to do? Because 9 times out of 10, when Stephen Curry was in the finals, he always had somebody that was going to be able to pick up the slack just in case.
Define somebody.
We
Those
don't have-
those
he had
somebodies
Klay
were
Thompson, he had a healthy Klay Thompson, and then he had Kevin Durant.
those healthy people. Those healthy people were created because of Steve Kerr. So as Kevin Durant, he was Finals MVP. The Warriors did win 73 games before Kevin Durant. They won a Finals. They won a championship.
Draymond Green that wasn't washed.
And
Let me try to reel this back in a little bit, gentlemen. About 3:45 left to go here. In game one, it was essentially a wire-to-wire victory almost for the Warriors until the Celtics went on that run towards about halfway in the fourth quarter. So with that said, does that outcome of game one more of a testament that the Celtics knew how to come from behind and close out? Or did the Warriors just let off the gas and like, this is just a fluke, this is not going to happen again?
I believe it's a twist of both. I believe, one, Boston knew what they were doing in that game to be able to beat Golden State because Steph Curry showed his cards in the first quarter. He showed his cards, and then the Warriors showed their cards in the second and third quarter when Klay Thompson, Jordan Poole couldn't get you nothing, and they were relying on Steph Curry heroics and Andrew Wiggins. The Celtics had Jason Tatum shooting 3 of whatever the fuck, and the rest of the team had to show up. Jaylen Brown is going to give you 25 in majority of these games. Horford may give you 20 again in these games.
The best in NBA history.
Have a terrible game like that ever again. Still were able to win, but not go ahead.
The best in NBA history is going to have an off quarter. So, you could say whatever you want about how Jaylen Brown Jason Tatum didn't have it throughout game one. Is that going to happen again? Steph and Klay, they were Klay was 2 of 3, so you kick the ball back to him more often than you're going to get results. But what was the final score? That it was 40-16. You are not going to have the Golden State Warriors shooting 16 points in a quarter during the NBA Finals. It will not happen. Okay, so with the Celtics at finishing 7 games and then 7 games the series before, they will be gassed. The Warriors are more refreshed.
They're also the younger team, so there's a chance that they may not be gassed.
Well, if that's the case, then they should.
Real quick, so Golden State had 2 very good quarters, but they had 2 incredibly terrible quarters in the very same game.
With the
team go from scoring 32 and 38 in 2 quarters. And then in the other 2 quarters right after that is 22 and 16.
With the playoff experience to boot. That playoff experience
crap does not matter when you're in the NBA Finals.
State the case.
And the determination.
State the case.
That's what helped Boston win this game. It was their heart and determination. They were able to lock up Golden State. They let Steph Curry do him, and they were not able to do nothing with them. Outside of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown last night, in game one, the Celtics shot 18 of 28. How do you expect to beat a team if you're letting every other guy except for the top 2 players drop 18 out of 28 threes? You're not winning nothing.
Stephen Curry is not going to have that kind of performance in game 2. You don't become the best in NBA history by having that kind of quarter, that kind of run throughout the rest of the playoffs. And keep in mind, Steph Curry is the kind of capability of making everybody else around him that much better. They have blossomed into NBA. And they have blossomed in as Hall of Famers because of not only Stephen Curry, but they have a floor general in Steve Kerr. And in terms of Emi Udoka, they do not have the leadership that could lead a team to the NBA Finals. Maybe one day, not this year.
And with that, I hate to do this, but that is time, gentlemen. That was intense. So I'm eager to see how you guys wrap these up. Cap, you can go on mute. RC, your 2-minute closing statement starts now.
Yes, the Boston Celtics did append my guy Kyle Lowry and his Miami Heat, but Cap, please do not tell me that the competitions The Warriors face was weak with the Grizzlies not having John Morant towards the end of that series, the Nuggets not having Jamal Murray. Your Celtics faced a depleted lineup without Chris Middleton and stalwarts like PJ Tucker, Dante DiVincenzo, and who were key players in last year's run. Not to mention in the first round, they faced the Days of Our Lives version of the Brooklyn Nets. I swear that team is ridiculous. The Celtics went 7 games with the Bucks, 7 games with the Heat. That and the sweeping of the Nets is an afterthought. It will catch up with the 2 7-game series. The Warriors went 6 in the series against Memphis and 5 in the conference finals against Dallas. Could it very well be that basketball fans who would love to anoint Jason Tatum, the relatively speaking new kid on the block, as a superstar, attaching him to one of the most historic franchises in NBA history? Perhaps one day, but not this year. The Warriors have a legend in Steve Kerr molding some Division I maybes into definitely. Steph Curry from Davidson, Klay Thompson from Washington State. Who from the NBA came from these schools? Yes, Draymond Green went to Michigan State. So did Mateen Cleaves. He did not lead anyone to a championship. Do you not think this Warriors team has a chip on their shoulders? Winning the first championship against the Cavs without Kyrie or Kevin Love, having Kevin Durant on the squad for the other two. This team is the epitome of perseverance. They are all inspired with Klay Thompson's return from 2 devastating injuries, as the Boston Celtics will have to wait another year for championship number 18. Winning their 7th championship in franchise history is the Golden State Warriors. I concede my time.
All right, thank you, RC. For that impassioned closing argument. I expect no less from Cap No Cap, so you can come off of mute, and your 2 minutes starts now.
All right, so the Celtics are the most accomplished team of all time. This year, they may be the underdogs, but they have gone against the grain all season. Going from 11th seed to 2nd seed since the All-Star break, beating the quote-unquote best player in the world. The Golden State Warriors are no slouches, but I think the Celtics just have more to prove. And in game 1, they came out hungrier. The Warriors aren't the same team from 2017 to 2019 with Kevin Durant. Now Steph Curry has more to prove than ever. Before, no excuses, but now he has to put the team on his back. Klay Thompson has been on the injury reserve list for 2 years, and he's still trying to find himself. Jordan Poole has never been to the big dance before, so you can't trust him, and Draymond is way past his best days. The Warriors live and die on Steph Curry, and I don't believe you can trust Steph Curry to give you 4 clutch performances to win this series. Unlike the Celtics, who have a deeper roster, the Tatum had a bad game, but Jaylen Brown was able to come up big in the 4th quarter. Al Horford was able to play his heart out, and I believe the Celtics have a deeper roster, and they'll prove that when they win the NBA championship for a record 18th time. And just so you know, by the way, before I finish, nobody in Golden State in game 1 had a positive plus minus. That is not going to cut it in game 2. That's all I got to say, and I can see the rest of my time.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I was expecting a very strong debate between you two, and you guys definitely delivered. So thank you all for that. Now, you listeners, this is now in your hands. Just letting you guys hear. Vote for who you think won this debate. And the poll is open now. And let's see how this one fares.
Yeah, what a great debate. Wow.
Cap, that was a blast, man. Thank you so much. Yeah, that was so much fun. Thank you.
Got my palms sweating.
No,
Back to 2016, I'm like, nah, the hate for Golden State is coming back.
no, you know what? With Patrick's happy hour, and if we do cut it up on Must Be the Money, it's always great to chat with you, talk sports. So no, it's the pleasure's all mine.
No doubt. I definitely see the farm, especially if I lose. Coming for the farm.
And unfortunately, it seems that would be the case, as Cap as RC has 66% of the vote with 9 votes in. There's 10 people tuned in. So, RC, you are going to get the victory here. The close the show out. So congratulations, sir.
That's that Golden State
Thank you.
propaganda. I expect Golden State to win tonight, but watch what happens when they get back to Boston. That's all I got.
I don't know. You know what? One of these days, Boston will be led by Jason Tatum. I don't think it's this year. I'm actually rocking my Del Curry's Raptors number 30. I will say that. So you know, I think Wardell's Papa had given me some inspiration and some love. I appreciate that.
Well, gentlemen, thank you both again for that amazing debate. That'll wrap up tonight's 23rd edition of Light 'em Up. I appreciate you all tuning in. You can listen to the Light 'em Up podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. And we'll see you guys again next week. As a programming note, there will be no cooling down tonight, but if anyone is interested in a brief, kind of impromptu cooling down right here on this cast, feel free to stick around. Send me an invite request if you want to hop in the hot seat. But Light 'em Up, the show is over. If you want to go ahead and tune in to the NBA Finals, which should be starting in a couple of moments, feel free to do so. But thank you all so much for listening tonight.
I got one thing to say. Y'all all going off past glory.
Yo, Cap, let's bring it over. Let's bring it over to the other show. Let's bring it over to the other show.
All right, so yeah, so now we're officially in cooling down, and so hopefully
this is the other show.
Stone meets Lenny Nelly by running things here tonight. I got a couple of invite requests. I got a Pack Zone in the building.